What is up, people? It is episode 15 of Stand Up Sales. Dylan, what is happening? How you feeling, buddy? You've been having a crazy couple of weeks, signing clients left and right. How's it all going?
Yeah, I mean it's tiring, but it's what you sign up for.
Entrepreneurship,
So
baby. Let's go.
no complaints. Could be worse or problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hit a record month this month?
Yeah, we have a chance to sniff 100 this
Woof.
month.
Look at that. Love to see it.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, cool. So today's session is all about sales mindset. So it's something that's very close to mine and Dylan's heart. I think the big consideration with sales mindset is ultimately this is a game where oftentimes it stuff gets thrown around. Like it's you need to get used to no's, you need to get used to rejection. Well, I mean, you don't if you're good. It's the reality. You need to get used to getting told to fuck off if you're bad at it. Otherwise, people shouldn't be telling you to fuck off that often. However, having a solid mindset of when stuff isn't going right and when you are in a slump is what's going to keep you going and actually make you a really high-performing rep across the board. So, Dylan, what say you?
Yeah, so I'm big on mindset.
I
Like
thought you were just going to end with "I'm big" and just leave it at that. I'm like, yep, I'm
I'm just big,
enormous.
yeah. But no, big on mindset because I know how instrumental mindset was and sales mindset, like
Yeah,
the sub niche of mindset of sales related mindset
yeah,
has been helpful for me because I wasn't always a bulletproof mindset. But once I created a bulletproof mindset, like sales, happiness, fulfillment, how I show up every day, all went in the upward trend. And literally half of our course that we teach for the setters is mindset related. Like we have two coaching calls. One is mindset, one is sales. The course is 70 modules. There's probably 30 in mindset. It's like very important because you could be really good at sales, like your skills at sales. But if you hit a bumpy patch, shit starts going not your way,
hmm
a deal falls out, you get in your head, and it's like a tumbleweed of negativity. And like I've seen it derail really good salespeople, and I've seen like people who were like middle of the pack, but were just like, I'm gonna do this above everything else,
yeah,
and they win in the long term compared to someone who kind of like the turtle in the hare, right? Like the hare starts off real hot, but the turtle wins the race, right? Because it's just slow, progressive, doesn't stop ever, and just keeps chugging along.
turtle in the hair.
Yeah, tortoise in the hare, whatever the
I
fuck it
was
is.
gonna say, surely Americans haven't wrecked that as well. Fucking hell, turtle in the hair. What are we
The
doing
turtle
with
in the hare. You knew what I
basic?
was fucking talking. You knew what I was fucking talking about. Um,
But no, yeah, slow and steady, 100% wins the race, right? So I was actually having this conversation with someone last week where they were, I don't know, they were probably like 2 weeks in Feb, and they hadn't closed a single deal. But last month they closed at 5%, and they were like, "What do I need to change? What do I need to do? Like, I'm doing something wrong." I'm like, "No, this is called
yeah,
regression to the mean. This is you are in a drought, and that's okay. That is normal. Just because you haven't closed anything for 2 weeks does not mean that what you are doing is bad, right?" And then a
no,
different person I spoke to was like, "Yeah, so I closed at like my record month ever in terms of closing rate in January, and then, I didn't close anything for the first week of Feb, so I like tried to overanalyze everything I was doing, and then I changed everything, and then yeah, I haven't closed shit in the last 3 weeks." And I'm like, "Yeah, you know why you haven't closed shit? Because you changed what was working, because you didn't see
yeah,
immediate results, and now look what's happened. Now you have to go back, and now you're in the bottom of the trough. You got to work all the way up just to get back up to parity. So just because you aren't seeing the results, don't then immediately change everything.
yeah,
Analyze it and be like, what is the problem? Why have I stopped seeing results? Is it regression to the mean? Eventually, we will all float back up to average. You will have really good months and really bad months, and that's okay, because on average, if you're improving over time, it's a win. Or is there something else? Is it bad lead quality because marketing has taken a different direction? Is it actually all of the calls that I've been getting, I haven't been doing X or Y on? I've got complacent. I'm not doing a strong frame at the start. I'm not asking X, Y, Z question. Is it something actually to do with what you're selling or how you're selling? Or is it just bad luck for a couple weeks? It happens. Happens to the best of us.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens to the best of us. That's like the biggest thing that I took out of that is like you're not special. Everyone experiences highs and lows in all parts
Yeah.
of life, especially in sales. Like control the things that you can control. Don't think about outside variables because then you
Yep.
start getting in your head. Your ego comes into play, like, oh, I'm the best closer. Why am I not the best one right now? Um, like it's really just taking and rolling with the punches because sales is seasonal, right? Like think about what you're selling. I used to sell a product into a high school and college sport like coaches for like basketball, volleyball, and
Mhm.
lacrosse. That was my first SDR gig. They have a very it's literally seasons of the sport, so we would have very high months before the
And
season
really
started,
low months.
and
Yep.
then during the season, you're never going to get anyone on the phone because they're coaching.
Yep.
And like you have to understand that that's just the
Going to
nature.
part, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have high and lows.
So within the sales mindset part of sales psych that I teach, there is you know who Epictetus is, Stoic philosopher. Heard of him? No. Epictetus was a slave. So he was born a slave and he became like a really well known, very well respected Stoic philosopher. But basically, a lot of his teaching is around the idea of there's stuff that you can control and stuff that you can't. And if you try and focus on the stuff that's out of your control, you will always be fucked, right? So there's actually a really pithy quote that he wrote that I put in the slides and make people like really try and internalize, and it is the chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. You are not in control, and this is the big thing that I try to get through to the guys who go through my sales training is you are not in control whether the prospect buys. Only they can make that decision. You are in control of running a good sales process. You are in control of asking good questions, running a good discovery, making sure that you actually have an idea of what the business does 2 minutes before you get on a call, right? All of these things are directly in your control. There's no button that you can reach into this other person's head and be like, okay, they're going to buy now. You're not in control of that. So don't deem your success on that. Deem it on the stuff that you can control, which is I did my job. And if you can
Yeah.
say 100% that I did that, no questions, that's a win in my book.
Yeah, focus on the inputs, not the outputs.
100%.
Like it's really a simple concept. But, given the way that the human brain works and how society is, it's like status, instant dopamine, direct feedback. That's just not how life works. Life, you got to take it as it comes.
So with that then, what are the big mindset mistakes that reps make apart from, I guess, getting in their own heads? Like that's the obvious one, right? Like you get in your own
Yeah.
head and then your results drop,
Thinking you're
whatever.
better
But
than you are.
oh, overconfidence. Interesting. Okay.
Like thinking you're above coaches, like critiques, feedback, coaching, like people that are ahead of you giving you advice, and you're like, I know what I'm doing. I've
Yeah.
closed $50,000 in my lifetime. I can, do whatever I want. Um, like, no, dude. Like, humble yourself
Yeah.
because there's people that are better than you. There's people that are better than you. People better than me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to be okay with that. Like, your ego has to get checked. And like a
100%.
lot of the reps that sometimes start out hot and don't is because they don't morph, they don't learn, they don't take in feedback and data and iterate on it because they don't allow themselves.
Something I do, and this is helpful for me because I'll explain what I do and then I'll explain why it's helpful. So, the guys that I've coached, that I've taken through sales psych, will go once a week. We have our weekly meeting and we do a call review basically every couple of weeks. And either we collectively review one of their calls or they review one of mine, right? And because they obviously know sales psych to the level I've taught them, they can analyze my calls in ways I don't see in my own head, right?
Oh,
Now, would
cool.
I say that I'm better at sales than both of them? There's an argument to be made, but are they better at certain things than me? 100%, right?
Yeah.
But having them know basically the stuff that I teach and then having that call that I've done reviewed is so interesting to me because I see someone that is quote unquote not as good as me at sales, be able to do the same stuff that I do to people when I review their calls back at me, and I'm like, oh God, why this makes me uncomfortable, because I'm like, yeah, but I taught them this, like, why are they giving me critiques? And you have to swallow your fucking pride and be like, yeah, they're right, that is true, you didn't do that. Yeah, that wasn't 100%, right? So, like, you have to be able to swallow your own pride and be like, okay, any feedback is good feedback so long as it comes from someone that actually knows what they're talking about. The worst feedback is from people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and then when they give you feedback, because that's useless. Don't listen to any of that. My basic rule is, if you've not done it 3 times successfully, I don't want to listen to you.
Yeah, if you're not doing something that I want to be doing.
Yeah.
Or if you haven't accomplished something that I haven't accomplished yet. Yeah, for sure. But that's actually a pretty cool, like, dynamic there. I might steal that.
Super worth it, dude. Like, you, especially because you've taught them, you now get to see how well they know it, because even when you watch it back, you'll pick up on stuff. And then if they go, oh, well, actually, you didn't do this, and you told us to always do that, and you're like, oh, shit, yeah, I didn't do that. That's actually a really good point. Fuck, right? So it's super helpful from that perspective, because you get to see what you've coached in live time, and it's helpful as a learning experience because you are the quote-unquote better person at this, so they should be able to gain something positive and pull you up on something negative based on the stuff that you've taught them.
Absolutely. That is pretty cool. So what is the biggest thing you've learned from your students? Nothing on the best.
Don't let them fucking talk. They don't know what I'm talking about. No. If you're listening to this, I mean that. No, so I think the big thing that I've realized about how I run calls is I do have the tendency to run really hot and run really cold. And that is a function of basically how stressed I am overall, and also how my preconceived notions about the prospect lead into that call. If I look at a prospect and I'm like, yeah, this is a dunk, I can 100% get this, I will breeze the call. No, I breeze it. It's so easy, and I'll close them without even trying. If I look at this and I'm like, this prospect kind of sucks, I don't think this is gonna go anywhere, I'll go into it half-cocked and it won't close. Even though, on review, it definitely could have, but because I had that preconceived notion, and I got called out for that, and they were like, yeah, you 100% didn't want this, and therefore it didn't close, and I was like, you're 100% right. I did not want that, and it didn't close. Yeah, in fact.
That's something I'm really good at. Is
really?
Like
just super consistent?
Like locking in.
Yeah, that's the one thing that is probably genuinely the weakest part of my sales game. Is if I look at a prospect and I'm like, you ain't gonna buy, man, you're a dickhead, and that will 100% track through and I won't close.
Yeah. Well, especially like energy wise, like I could be fucking toasted.
Yeah.
And before we put the record button on this, I was like fucking about to fall asleep, and then the record button on, I'm like locked in. I don't know. I guess it's just
the locking in part, 100%. I get that 1,000,000%. I'm the exact same way. I can take calls for 10, 11 hours straight, and it's only as soon as I'm done for the day, I melt into my chair, 100%. But like, it's the preconceived notion of I know who is going to close and who isn't, and then my brain being like, oh, well then you can throw everything that you know about sales out the window and just take the call, instead of being like, no, this is the same as everyone. Yeah, exactly that. So I think I get laziest when
that's human nature too.
Yeah, like
that's why sometimes the info before the call is dangerous.
Just go into every call completely raw dogging it.
Yeah, just blind.
I might do that for the next like 10 calls. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, or just like, also a big thing on mindset is like certainty and confidence, and like going into every call knowing that you will win the call and the outcome. Obviously, given that they're actually a good fit and all the other things that you have to take into account. Yeah. But like, if they check the boxes of qualification, like I will and can close this.
So this is an interesting one. I had a discussion on this on Twitter, I think last week. This is kind of like, it's tangential to this topic, right? So I'm interested to hear your thoughts. So I said, it is not the closer's job to close every single call that comes onto their calendar.
Mm-hmm.
There was a discussion on Twitter that basically said, yes, it is. The closer is there to do their job, just close deals. It is marketing's problems if those people aren't qualified. What say you?
But people lie.
Okay, fair.
So people slip through the cracks.
Okay.
So ultimately, you're the gatekeeper. You're the bouncer at the club.
So this is my perspective too, right? I have to treat every prospect like they're a liar and actively DQ them out because worst case scenario, they get through and then they're a dickhead and then everyone loses.
Yeah.
But the argument on Twitter was that's not the closer's job to do that. The closer's job is to close everyone that comes on the call because they got through. And ultimately, if people are slipping through the cracks, again, that's marketing's problem.
That sounds like a closer saying that. Not a business owner.
The person who said it is a very well-known business owner. And there were multiple business owners that agreed.
I mean, I would say yes and no to that question because it is a little bit, depends on how well your sales process is.
Okay.
Like if it's just like, boom, booked a call through the website on the closer's calendar, you have to do gatekeeping.
Yep.
But if they're like marketing qualified, setter qualified, then they get to you thing, like you should be closing them. Unless there's like some blatant extenuating circumstance.
Okay. So then you're kind of more in the camp of
if there's like a legitimate qualification process before it ever
so let's say it's like type form questionnaire, setter, closer call. That's the funnel. So opt-in, setter, opt-in, application, setter, set closer.
Then you should be closing those deals.
Every single one.
I mean,
yeah, you see the gray area is tough.
Not 100%.
Okay, so why isn't it 100%?
Because as the closer, you should be the most advanced sales person in that conversation. Like the setter's job is to get them to you at the end of the day. Okay. Their job is not to disqualify and not put a ball over the plate, right? Like at the end of the day, marketing is evaluated and paid on how many leads they generate. Setters are evaluated and paid on how many qualified meetings they set. Closers are evaluated and paid on how many deals they close, right? Okay. That's the flaw in the whole thing, is that the way they make money is by doing the one thing that they're paid to do. Their job is not to, I mean, in your camp, they are paid to disqualify to a degree. But like if someone does come across and something that hasn't been uncovered is a thorn, then yeah, you should probably part ways. Or now that pricing is introduced in the closing call, a lot of fucking things can go there. There's a lot of variables that can go there. Oh, I want a discount. I want this. I want this. I want this list of demands. I want this guarantee. Like if there's something like that, like that should be something that you should be talking to with the business owner, with your manager, and saying, hey, if this call or if this situation happens, what is the standing operating procedure in the company? Like, oh, we don't do discounts. Okay, then you're not going to fucking close that person.
Yep.
But if you're under the inclination of closing things at all
all costs,
at all costs, that's not going to do the business any good. Because the guy's like, yeah, I want $1,500 off. Okay, if you sign today, all right, boom, yeah, boom. Why'd you close this deal for $1,500 off? Oh, well, I was supposed to close every deal. Like, you can't have that.
So do you think that there's almost like a fundamental disconnect between how people are being paid and how like the job roles that they're meant to do, right? So for example, marketing is paid per qualified lead.
Yeah.
Then setters are paid per qualified call.
Yeah. Then
closers are paid per close.
Yeah.
There is a qualification element for every single person apart from the closer.
Well, you should give bonuses if your business model is a recurring business model.
Yep.
You should bonus them if they've stayed there for longer than the lifetime value.
Interesting. Okay, so let's say 6 months is average client tenure, and it's a $3K deal. So average client value, 18 grand over 6 months.
Yeah, if they pay you 21 grand, you pay them a bonus because they've now closed the client that is past what's
above the. Interesting. That's a really cool model. I hadn't thought of that.
We do that.
Very interesting. Okay, so then at what point does it become, let's say, in my mind, setters are the first line of defense.
Correct.
Setter's job is bullshit check, right? I've got this application in front of me. Tell me about business. What does this do? What is that? Tell me about this. Tell me about that. Tell me about the other, right? oh yeah, we've been in business for 2.5 weeks and we don't really know what we need and blah, 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 blah. In my mind, it's set as like, yeah, buddy, no, get out. Goodbye. Yeah?
Yes, unless they're paid on
Obviously.
just setting the meetings. Yeah,
Okay, so there is a qualification element to it, right?
correct.
Marketing's job at the start of it is to say, okay, we don't want people who, if you're running a fitness offer, anyone who currently is below 10% body fat and competes in Ironman tournaments probably isn't a good fit. Let's not bring those people to the funnel, right? That's the quote-unquote qualification element, right?
Yeah,
We
well, they should
only
be
want
creating content that appeals to a very specific audience.
yeah. Then you get to the setup. Oh, actually, yeah, I have no money because I broke my back and have medical fees. If that
Nurture.
person gets set, problem, obviously.
Big problem.
Big problem. But let's say, they're targeting the right people at marketing, setter comes through, and they go, okay, yeah, I'm really interested in fitness, I need to lose weight, blah, 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 qualified.
Correct.
However, setter doesn't do any kind of price disqualification. And when the closer comes on, and they go, okay, great, gotten through a perfect customer or perfect prospect all the way through, really bought into the whole thing. Okay, it's $5,000. Oh, I thought this was $50.
Well, that's a marketing problem.
That's a marketing problem. So it's not a setter problem in your mind.
Well, it depends on what you want. I mean, whatever you train the setter to qualify for.
Okay, so it's potentially like a business practice, business SOP problem more so than anything else. That's interesting.
Everything
So
starts with the business. How you train
yeah.
your reps, the verbiage that you use to get them into your ecosystem, all of that should be audited by the business owner.
That tracks. I understand that.
Your website should have some type of disqualifications or enough information where someone could read it, right? Like a VSL. Watch this before the setter call. Watch this before your call with the closer.
Okay.
But there's also a school of thought that if you do hit all the qualifications and you're good at sales, you can get something done.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is if they
How many times have you seen someone that's disqualified from a monetary perspective?
Yeah.
Or we're doing a 0 to 10K a month, but what they didn't put on the fucking lead sheet is that they just sold their first company for $10 million.
Yeah.
But their current company's at $3K a month.
Yeah. And I have 100% had that where I walked into calls and been like, this guy is poor. And then it's like, oh yeah, this business does nothing, but I just exited for a $25+ million deal. Oh, pay in full 10 grand? Yeah, no problem. Done.
Yeah.
So 100%, there is a suspend your disbelief element to it. But more broadly, I think that in my mind, like the setter's job is make sure these people can actually do the thing. Do they have
Correct.
a legitimate business? Do they have cash available to spend? Then
Yeah, but maybe the business owner feels more comfortable discussing price with a closer.
fair. Is there not the argument that you're wasting the closer's time if you get a bunch of people who are not qualified financially?
If it becomes a trend.
Okay. So at the point, interesting. So the point it becomes data driven, where you can say, hey, of the last 50 calls I took, 30 of them weren't financially qualified.
Yeah.
At that point, it then goes back a level.
Yeah. So setters, our setters, when they work with a setter closer strategy, is once that call runs, you message the closer, how did it go? And you get direct feedback, and you share that with us.
Okay.
Oh, this person was good, but they were unqualified because of these reasons. Okay, now I learn. That goes back to my overconfidence belief.
Okay.
Well, this closer's bad. This guy was actually a good lead. It's not my fault. It's the closer's fault. No, it's not. So like data, feedback, communications, conversations, that is what really drives good sales process. Because nothing's ever perfect, ever.
Okay. Interesting. So this is a data conversation and almost an over understanding from the business itself of what is it selling and how is it selling it, so that it can be informed across every part of the pipeline.
Yeah. Well, you can't be a successful company if you don't know who you want to sell to.
Okay. So
Like, never.
what is the solution then, right? So let's say you have a solid closing team. You've got
Yeah.
multiple reps closing at more than 30%, which in my mind is a solid team.
Yeah.
The average closer brings in, let's say medium to high ticket offer, so between 5 and 10K. Average
Okay.
closer probably closes about 30 to 50 grand in deals.
Okay. What's your churn rate?
Nominal, let's say 10%.
Okay.
So very solid financials on the closing side.
Well, they know who their prospect is.
Okay, fine. So then at that point, let's say the closing rate drops drastically and no closer jumps above 15%. And there's no rhyme or reason as to why. Who gets the finger
Nothing
pointed?
changed.
Nothing changes so far as the business is aware. Who gets the finger pointed at them? The closers who have historically closed at 30 plus
Everyone.
percent. Everyone gets fingers pointed at. Interesting, okay. Okay.
Everyone. You need to take a deep look. Nothing works always.
Interesting.
Like the Ty Lopez Lamborghini video.
Mhm.
That worked for a period of time. That wouldn't
And
work
now people look at it and go, yuck.
Yuck. That's why ad agencies exist. Constant change in ads. Always testing. Always split testing. Always. Think about Daniel, how many fucking times he talks about new ads or new things.
You see what he put in the ads channel in Class Engine this week?
No.
He was like, I'm testing 6 ads. I have another 36 ready.
Yeah,
And the
exactly.
winner of this one is going to be the control for the next 6 and the next 6.
Yeah.
So he already has six A/B tests ready and waiting, and just
Yeah.
new ad creative just to roll in.
Yeah, and he'll win because he's a psycho.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Other people will be like, oh, this ad's crushing it. I'm just going to keep spending money on this ad.
This
It would
is
never
this is
possibly
something.
decrease.
It's really interesting, right? So this is exactly what we're doing with Melee with variation loads, right? Like every other cold email platform on the planet does not allow you to do variation loads when you do it, right? When you run A/B tests, they split the A/B test equally between how many variants you have. That is not A/B testing. That's just testing different variants at the same rate. So we say, okay, we're going to give you the opportunity to create controls. So let's say, you know that variation A gets 10 meetings a month without fail every time for the last 3 months at least. Okay, great. 80% of the emails that you send should go through variation A because you know it's guaranteed for now, and everything else gets tested in smaller increments. Okay, well,
Yeah.
you sent 5% or 10% of leads through variation B this time, but it booked 4 calls. Okay, let's on the next round test that at a greater degree. Let it take up more space. Let's see what it actually comes out next time, right? You continue to just keep spinning this out until you have something that allows you to create new controls every time you run campaigns.
Smart. Constant variation.
It
Yeah.
has to be. Because otherwise you do exactly what you just said, right? You just run the exact same thing into the ground and then it doesn't work anymore and you're like, oh shit, wait, what do I do now?
Then you got to start back up.
Yeah, exactly that.
Always be up here.
Okay, so that was a pretty diverse conversation we had over the last 40 minutes.
What is that?
I said that was a diverse conversation we had over the last 40 minutes. We went from mindset to who gets the blame when things fuck up.
It's just sales chat. That's what this whole thing's about. Man up sales. Sales is always variable. There's always different things to talk about, and one thing goes to a next thing, and it kind of goes like that. So I think it's a good time to wrap it. 30-minute mark. All right. Awesome, guys. Well, if you stuck with us through 15, we'll see you at 16.
Sit around.
See ya.